the last photo. It started with an old digital camera I found in a thrift shop, tucked away in a pile of discarded electronics. I've always liked vintage tech, so I picked it up on impulse. It was a Canon PowerShot, the kind people used in the early 2000s, back when digital cameras were the big thing. I didn't expect it to work, but for $5, it was worth it as a little nostalgia piece. To my surprise, the camera turned on as soon as I pressed the power button. Even stranger, it had a memory card inside with just enough charge for me to browse the photos. I clicked through the images, expecting blurry family photos or maybe someone's vacation shots, but they were different. The photos were of places I knew, local spots around my city, the small corner store a few blocks from my apartment, the library downtown, the park where I'd sometimes go jogging. Each photo was taken at night, dimly lit by streetlights or the glow of windows in the distance. They were empty scenes, no people, no movement. Just quiet, lonely places. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had taken these photos deliberately, that they'd been carefully chosen. Curiosity got the better of me and I kept scrolling. That's when I saw it. One of the photos was of my street, taken from the far end, near the lamppost at the corner. The angle was such that you could see all the houses lined up, including mine, faintly visible in the background. It was unsettling, but I told myself it was probably nothing. I mean, thousands of people had probably walked down that street over the years, right? The chances of one of them taking a photo from that angle wasn't impossible. But still, I could feel a pit forming in my stomach. I clicked to the next photo. This one was closer, from about halfway down the street, as though the photographer had walked closer. I could see my house more clearly now, my front porch light glowing dimly. I didn't know what to make of it. I was beginning to feel cold, an unease creeping into my chest. Why would someone be photographing my house at night? My hands were shaking a little as I clicked to the next image. This one was taken from directly across the street. My house filled the frame, the front windows visible, curtains drawn. I could almost imagine someone standing there, staring into the darkness. The last photo was taken from my front porch. It showed my front door, close enough that you could make out the chipped paint and the worn welcome mat. My porch light cast a harsh glow, illuminating the door as if whoever took the picture had stood right in front of it, close enough to knock. A sense of dread settled over me. I had no idea who had taken these photos, or why they had stopped just before going inside. For a moment, I sat there, staring at the last photo, half expecting something to happen. The rational side of me thought I was just being paranoid. These photos could have been taken at any time. It wasn't as if the person was there now. But as I sat there, I heard something faint. A tapping. I froze, my breath catching. The sound was coming from the front door, soft, rhythmic, as if someone were lightly knocking, almost testing. I held my breath, straining to listen. The tapping continued for another few seconds, then stopped. Silence filled the air, thick and unnerving. I stood up slowly, moving toward the door, telling myself it was probably a neighbor or a late-night delivery. But as I reached the door, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Maybe I could catch whoever was out there in the act. I quickly turned on the camera, setting it to record video, and then very slowly, I unlocked the door and cracked it open just a little, peeking outside. There was no one there. The porch was empty, silent except for the hum of the street lamp down the road. I stepped out, my phone flashlight cutting through the darkness, but the street was still, the empty quiet of the early morning stretching out around me. With a shiver, I went back inside and locked the door, double-checking to make sure it was secure. Trying to shake off the fear, I told myself that it was just some prankster, or maybe the wind. But then I remembered the camera. I turned it off, planning to set it aside, but something in me wanted to look at the recording. My fingers fumbled with the buttons as I replayed the video, my heart beat loud in my ears. The footage was grainy and dark, but I could make out the porch, the shadows shifting as I'd opened the door. Then I saw it. A shadowy figure was standing just outside the camera's view, barely visible at the edge of the frame. They were still, almost perfectly still, standing a few feet to the side of the door, just out of my line of sight when I'd peeked outside. As I watched, the figure stepped back into the shadows, vanishing from view entirely. I paused the video, my mind reeling. They had been right there, close enough that they could have reached out and touched me. Panicking, I rewound the footage, scanning for any details that might help me make sense of what I'd seen. But when I looked closer, my blood ran cold. The figure wasn't a stranger. It was me. It was wearing my clothes, with my face standing just out of sight with a blank, lifeless expression. But there was something off about it, something wrong in the way it held itself, like it was waiting. I stared at the footage, unable to process what I was seeing. How could that be me? It didn't make sense. My mind raced, trying to find any possible explanation, but there was none. The only thing I could do was sit there, frozen in fear. That night, I hardly slept, and in the days that followed, I tried to convince myself it was some kind of glitch, some strange technical error. But every time I turned on that camera, the same thing happened. I'd take a new photo or video, only to find myself in the frame, staring back at me from somewhere in the background, always waiting, always watching. I threw the camera away last week, hoping it would be enough to end it. But tonight, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my bedroom window, taken from outside. And just barely visible behind the curtains was a face. My face.